Okay, so hi, Chirag. Nice to finally get you on the podcast.
Hi, Oleg. Super excited to be here. This sounded super fun. So glad to be chatting.
Great. I'm going to UC Berkeley. You graduated from UC Berkeley as well. What were you studying?
I was studying IOR, so like you. I find IOR to be a super fascinating degree because like it's kind of there's a lot of math to it, but it's also kind of practical, the applied side of things, and like so you get to learn a lot of things which like you can actually apply to modern finance as well as tech companies. So that was one of the reasons why I decided to major in that, and so that's how I ended up doing that.
No, for sure. I feel like a lot of people go to economics because they don't know what to do. So I just thought ORMS is like more of like or like industrial engineering, even it's more like a major you want to focus in something specific rather than just like the general economics and
Yeah,
finance space, right?
I think it does give you a pretty solid background on the technical side of algorithms, and like kind of helps you focus on how you can actually apply, let's say, something like linear programming or something like that to industry use cases. And I think I found that aspect of the major pretty useful. And I think it also, like, in general, the program is like fairly analytical, and like it kind of like it gives you a lot of toolkits which helps you break down any abstract problem into actually like things which you can quantify and then make good decisions out of. So that's, I think, like that's kind of the high level message of the major of the degree. So yeah, I find that to be super useful even today.
No, for sure. And where did you say you had your undergraduate education?
I finished my undergrad in 2013, and that was in electrical engineering. And then I
Oh,
started my grad school. I graduated in 2014, and yeah, then since then I've been working.
what made you decide to go graduate school, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, for sure. I there were a few reasons. I think the first and foremost reason was like at the end of undergrad, felt like I still had a lot more to learn, and I felt like graduate school was going to be the right opportunity there. And I did have a job after undergrad, but like I felt like I wasn't ready to dive into the industry at that point of time. I want and I felt like in terms of skills as well, like there were like definitely a few things which I could pick up on in graduate school. So that was the main motivation for the main motivation to do grad school. And yeah, and I think like in retrospect, I think it did work out well. I think spending that additional time in grad school, I thought, like, helped me go deeper into some of the topics which I think I knew at a high level after undergrad, but actually like hadn't gone as deep into it in my undergrad program. So I think so that, and I think I also like it. It also gave me time to like improve my programming skills. So that was something which I think was a extremely worthwhile investment, seeing how my career shaped up.
Yeah, and growing up, do you think you always thought you would go to to graduate school, or do you think you would have straight went from undergrad to like a job?
Yeah, growing up, no. I mean, I think while I was growing up, I was like, okay, I cannot wait to be get done with school, and I was like, okay, I want to get to a job ASAP. But I think soon after I started my undergrad, I realized like, yeah, it would be pretty cool to do a graduate degree.
And was there a reason for choosing Cal, or was that just like something that was close to you? Or
Yeah, actually, so I was moving from India to do my grad school, so it wasn't something which was close to me. It was more about, I think so. I was fortunate to get admitted to a few schools, and then I looked at the schools which like were most in line with like how I saw the world, and also like the strength of the faculty, the strength of the program. I kind of like factored all of those sort of things in to make my decision.
and like I know now the professional kind of job search is really competitive. Do you think you struggled with finding your first job ever, or
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was super easy because I mean, yeah, I was like I was in a new country, and like so I definitely had to familiarize myself with the US job search process. So I think understanding that aspect of things, like what do employers here value, was definitely something which I wouldn't like. It was not a given. It's something which it took some time to understand that and kind of get familiar with that. And I think the second thing was like just uh, job prep is a lot about like being extremely familiar with the skills which the employer needs, and like being able to demonstrate that you're already either good at that or can like pick up those skills pretty quickly. So I think I had to do a fair bit of research to understand exactly what employers want, and like then and I think then like once I did that, like I was able to do interviews well after that. So no, so I wouldn't say it was super easy, but I also think it could have been a lot harder as well. So yeah, I'm thankful for the opportunities I got.
Was there like a field you were specifically applying for, or was it just more general? Because I know from my experience, I'm trying to find summer internships right now, and it's just like feels like I'm just trying to get any sort of job to put on my resume to just get experience. So I'm just wondering if you had the same issue or experience like that.
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, I definitely even back then I kind of and I think like seeing some of the conversations back then, which was really focused on like how the importance of data going forward, and I think even then like it was pretty clear that like be having skill sets to analyze large data sets in different contexts and being able to like extract insights of that is going to be valuable. So I definitely wanted my job to be as close to that, whether it was like analyzing large data sets or being able to create large data sets, and or yeah, like using machine learning to like extract inferences from that. So that I knew like that was the kind of theme of type of job which I definitely wanted, and yeah, and I think I'm definitely happy that like that's the kind of role which I got after graduating.
And how did you get into ML? Was it more of like the coursework, or was it something that you applied yourself to externally and just like thought that
I
was
think
interesting?
both. So I taken a course on neural networks in my undergrad, and I taken a like machine learning course in grad school. I think it's few other quantitative courses like around like statistical learning, etc., which I think definitely helped in grounding my knowledge to what's required for ML. But it was also like I think just working in the industry and like solving problems which people are actually seeing, which is and like understanding like okay, like how do you translate some of your academic toolkits to actually like solve problems in the industry. So those are the things which I actually got to learn on the job, and I think those are the type of things which actually help me like build up the skill sets which help to solve an actual problem in the industry.
Yeah. On that note, do you mind just talking about a little bit about your first job and what it was, how you felt? Did you feel underprepared or not? Just stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely felt nervous for my first job, and like so, my first job was in A9, which was like one of Amazon's teams down in Palo Alto, and I was in the supply side ads team, and I think my the key job which I had was to essentially like pass like the large amount of logs from Amazon's ads product, and then be able to like create data sets for our marketing and yeah, product marketing and product teams and all of that sort of stuff. So a lot of the questions which the team had to answer is okay, how do we parse this like massive number of logs which you're getting from the different ad systems, and help answer questions which our marketing teams asking, okay, like which publishers are getting the most number of impressions, which publishers are getting the most number of clicks, and how do we drive quality traffic to our advertisers and things like that from those publishers. So those are some of the questions which you're asking. So, and I think back then it was like I think about 50% of the job was like learning about toolkits such as Hadoop, because I think back then Spark was just getting off the ground, or like it was, people knew about it, but I don't think we were using it then. So it was like learning about Hadoop, Hive, and like all of those toolkits, and then using that to like analyze this data set, and then creating like views which could be used by our client teams. So that was kind of the first job, and yeah, it was super helpful learning about all of those.
And then for your second role, did you go into a similar field, or was it something tangent to the job that you had
I
the
mean,
first time?
I think the toolkit was all the toolkit was actually identical, but the field was kind of a bit different. So after like working at Amazon, I realized I actually wanted to work in something smaller, and working in like early stage startup, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to build my own back then. So I joined this early stage startup called Trooly, and I think the what Trooly was trying to do is understand, use publicly available data set to find bad actors who are using marketplaces. And the idea was that like, uh, publicly available data sets are actually pretty underutilized because there is a fair bit of complexity in processing that data and making that usable. So what we did was we started like, aggregating publicly available data sets to find like bad actors on the internet, and make sure that like, worked with marketplaces to enable like, help them like screen those users and like see if like that violates their policy or not. So it's a pretty niche space, but I think like a very highly impactful space. So we yeah, and a large part of the technology was like, was aggregating data from different websites, making like unstructured data into structured data so that it can be actually understood, and then like creating working with the clients to create workflows to review that data.
So were you a developer on a project, or more of like a co-founder, product
No,
manager?
I was one of the early engineers on the project.
Early engineers. And as an early engineer, did you have any like big challenge you faced or anything of the sort?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges was actually understanding client requirements and being able to create a solution for them. So there was this one client which we were working with, and the requirements were pretty complex because what they wanted to do was like use publicly available data to understand if a given person would actually meet their loan requirements or not. So, and that's an extremely like broad problem say statement, but like, so for us the job was to like, okay, what kind of data will actually be useful, avoid using data sets which can have bias in it, but also like, find data which can actually add signal to their loan default models and stuff like that. So it was fairly challenging, and I think like, it was such a blue sky open space that like it was kind of hard to figure out, okay, where can we actually start on this. So I think that was definitely one of the challenges, because it was actually like there weren't a fixed set of steps from going from problem to solution, and there was a lot of discovery required for us to actually solve the problem. So that was, I think, one of the like hardest projects I'd done. And yeah, I mean, in the end it actually didn't go well because like client felt like they had a better solution available.
Mm.
But I think from a learning point of view, it was one of my most fun projects.
And was it from there that you decided to go into your own startup, or was it something different?
No, I did my own startup a fair bit later. So that company which I was working for, they got acquired by Airbnb, and I was at Airbnb for a few years, and then I joined Facebook for some time, and then it was at that point of time I started like thinking about, okay, like it might be interesting to do my own startup, and that's how I got into it. So when we're thinking about like my own startup, it was actually during the pandemic, and one of the first ideas which we had was how can we like we thought like I mean the pandemic was here to stay, but people were hiring remote teams, but people would want to get those remote teams together for offsites and things like that. So one of the things which we were thinking was, okay, how can we make that process much more seamless, because that's a pretty like nobody wants to plan a really an offsite in the company because it's a pretty complex process and it's kind of a thankless job. Can we build a service which kind of automates all of that? So I think it was a pretty interesting problem in terms of like integrating with flight solution, integrating with like accommodation providers, and trying to automate some of that. What we realized is like that and that was the idea which we applied to Y Combinator with. But like what we realized, it's actually a really complex problem us to solve, and we were actually kind of becoming more of a tech based service rather than a technology product in itself. So which is why we decided to pivot to what we were working on right now.
Oh, sorry, you cut out. Yeah. And how was that process applying to Y Combinator?
It was pretty intense. Like, I mean, the application in itself is like not complex, but like it's a pretty intense process because like one is like it has a number of questions, and it's there's no like single template in which you can answer that. So you have to figure out like what you're trying to communicate with that. So what we try to demonstrate is that the business, we understand our business really well in our application as well as in the interviews, and wanted to demonstrate that like we are like a really good fit to build that. And so that's like it. And I think YC kind of, I guess, likes that because they want you to be like really deep into the business you're trying to build, and kind of know everything inside there. But they also do understand that like this may not be the idea you stick with in the long run, 'cause especially like as you start building more of the company out, you might realize that like there might be other better opportunities available for you to like work on something else. And I think that's exactly what did happen to us. But I think what um, the best YC application, at least in my opinion, are the ones which are where the entrepreneurs deeply understand the problem which they are working on at the time of application, and can go into a lot of detail into that. And I think that's what we focused on.
And it'd be interesting if you could just tell us like the step by step process you had once you had the idea. What apps you started to use? Did you have like an MVP? How long did that take? Did you have like more people to hire? Did you do it all yourself? Co-founders and whatnot. If like you could just tell a little bit about that.
Yeah, so once we had the idea, so me and my co-founder decided to like build this out internally. So yeah, we did not hire anyone at that point of time. We decided, okay, hey, we let's actually try to ship an MVP in 2 to 3 weeks, which we did. And the initial MVP was like you can go and select a destination and then select an accommodation in that destination, and then contact us, and then we would set up the rest of the process. And then in the back end, what we had done was like we had built a few relationships with some accommodation providers who would be interested in a solution like this, because it's kind of like matching both sides that you want. It's like it was a corporate travel marketplace, so you needed to figure out how to get the demand, which is which is corporates looking to book offsite, but you also needed to figure out the supply side, which is hotels or accommodations who would think. And the key thing is like you want to work with hotels or partners who will actually give you sufficient amount of discount, and that kind of becomes your revenue. So that was essentially the high level business model. So yeah, we had to bootstrap both of those things at the same time. So I think the first thing which we did was create a super simple website to attract corporate travelers. Then we started building partnerships with the like hotel providers who were like interested in a solution like this. And the final thing which we also started doing was like building out some of our services which we needed to use to actually automate this entire process. Like in the beginning, like there was a fair bit of like manual work required to actually do this, but like the vision was that we would automate this end-to-end process over time.
Yeah, Evan, do you have any like particular stack that you use? Like, did you build on Xcode? Did you ever use like
Oh yeah,
Firebase, whatever? Not.
no, it was a web app. So we web app we built on React. I think it was a Flask backend, and yeah, the entire application was hosted on AWS.
Was there a reason you chose a web app, or just to capture the most audience, or?
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, I think corporate travelers were primarily like using web apps. Like, I think if you look at it, like for corporate travel, the other apps people were using were things such as Concur and all of those sort of stuff, where, like SAP Concur. And I think, uh, I mean, I they might those companies might have a mobile app, but I think majority of traffic was a web app. So we decided, okay, hey, but yeah, we were like since there was a we didn't want to delight the user. I think at some point of time we would have built a mobile app if we'd continued with that.
Do you want to just take a step back for our viewers and just describe what the actual idea was for your startup?
Yeah, so the idea was a corporate travel marketplace, primarily for remote companies to host offsites.
Okay, and this was a big issue because of the COVID.
Yeah,
or
it was a big issue because of COVID. I think it was the first time a number of people were hiring like remote teams, not just remote within the US, but remote globally. And I think from our interviews, we did see a lot of people wanting to get their teams together. So they wanted to get their teams together, and yeah, like with an offsite and things like that, just to build. Enable building of culture, work on strategic topics and things like that, and so that's why they wanted like some in-person time with their teams.
I mean, do you have any like really big issues you had when developing the actual app for your startup idea? Because I know I'm trying to make my own app as well.
Yeah,
I'll love to go into it a bit later, but if you could just tell me like what's your biggest yeah issue you had.
I think the biggest challenge was it was super hard to automate everything. Like what we ended up, because take for example, like we started like booking accommodations on the platform, but then like what if someone needs to, like someone wanted to cancel just part of the accommodation. So it was like you make a booking for 10 people, but let's say the CEO calls you up and says, hey, by the way, sorry, I know you've booked this, but we want to cancel just my flight and reroute that to come in 2 days later. Those are certain things which like there were not clear APIs to do just that. So then you have to go like take for example, if you've done a group booking, then you need to go back, call the service operator and ask them, hey, if you can make an exception for the one for that one person. And that was one of the frustrating parts, because like it was, these are cases which, I mean, there were genuine reasons why these cases kept coming up, but it was not, we were getting frustrated because like it wasn't obvious on how we automate that down the line. And so that was one of the places which we realized like, okay, there's a actually a huge service element to this business.
And how about like when you structured the way you were going to build out this app? Did you just like make a plan at the start, or did you just hack away at it first and then see which issues and which features demanded the most of your time? You know?
So yeah, I think the line cut off a bit, but I think the question is like, how do you choose which features demand the most of your time, right?
Yeah, like did you start with like a plan from the onset, or did you just hack away at features and see which ones demanded the most of your time?
Yeah, we did have a plan from the offset, so we kind of had like, okay, hey, this is where we want to be at the end of week one. This is where we want to be at the end of week two, and all of that sort of stuff. But you also like use customer feedback to inform that plan. For example, if customers told us like, hey, for example, one of our customers told us that like they wanted to make it easy to collect feedback in the app. So then that's what we started focusing on. Like we didn't just we had a plan, but we iterated on the plan based on customer feedback. And like customer feedback was one of the most important things, which like led us to determine okay which direction we go.
And how long did it take you to deliver your product to actual customers for testing?
I mean, the first MVP we got that out in I think 2.5 weeks.
2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, with just two people.
Yes. Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah.
So
How about?
yeah. Go on.
Oh no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, because we definitely kept the version like the scope of the MVP narrow, but I think like we definitely wanted to get the product out to market to essentially start getting feedback on, because we wouldn't have been able to get all the customer feedback if we didn't get to market pretty quickly. So we definitely knew that like we wanted to get to market ASAP. And I think like in general, I mean, of course there are like exception cases, but like in general it's a pretty good idea to get to market as soon as possible and iterate based on your customer feedback.
How did you get these corporate travelers to actually trust your site and like trust get even just acknowledge that your idea like works and stuff? How do you do that?
It was pretty hard, but the one of the things is we reached out to a lot of early stage startups, like a seed or series A startups who were essentially remote, and they had a burning problem, and they did not want to pay the massive like I think our alternatives costed much more, were a lot more expensive. So they knew this was a problem to be solved, but they did not want to like pay significant amounts to other solutions in the market. And that was our thing, that we are going to do things at a much cheaper cost than what your other solutions would be. And so I think that's how we got people to give us an opportunity. And then I think we were one of the things which we try to do, and definitely my co-founder did an amazing job of that, is essentially try to make sure that like once we got a customer, that the customer got some amazing service while we were there, because that was the only like it's as you're rightly thinking, like yeah, it's super hard to trust this unknown startup which has two to three people working on it, right? So like I think building that level of trust is kind of critical. So what we did was, okay, like we try to do everything possible to make sure that that startup had the best possible experience. And then I think once we had a couple of cases where people had a great experience, then those people, those customers started like talking about us with their friends and things like that, and we got some word of mouth through that.
And did you ever have any issues with scale or like having like a large amount of people going to your site, traffic, stuff like that?
No, not for that idea. I think it was because it was we were so early that yeah, I don't think like we had significant challenges from scale.
Okay, okay. Now just give me a second. I'm gonna pitch you my idea. Okay.
Yeah,
Um, I'm currently pledging a fraternity, and one of the things we have to do is just like make bids for people. It's like little tickets just to get them to parties. And right now the system is you have to print out a bulk amount of bids. You have to cut them out. You have to physically, hand by hand, like draw out the number of the risk number, which you call if like somebody's too drunk or like is doing like activities that aren't like safe. I mean, if to hand them out, which is like 80 or 100 bids per day or per party to these like people that you want to invite, as well as give them to brothers. And so we thought
yeah,
that was like a very outdated system. Like, why can't we automate this? And
yeah.
so this is where Biddle comes in. It's basically just an app that you can have your bid on digitally, and you click on the app. It takes you to your bids directly. You click on the bid. You show your phone, and then the door master or someone who's on the door and lets people in, he just clicks his phone, and that basically authenticates the bid by makes it flashing, and the pattern changes. And so when people
Okay.
show their bids, the people go in, and then that makes the process quicker, and you don't have to print the bids and whatnot. Do you think this is a good idea?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like what you're doing is, and I haven't been in a frat, so I don't know exactly how it works. But from what it sounds like, you're kind of automating a manual process, right?
For sure, yeah.
And I think like in an idea like this, what's key is like how do you get because people are already doing what you're trying to automate. So
Yeah.
you need to figure out what are the blockers in getting those people to automate and things like that, and kind of solve those problems. So that's what I would think about if I were you. Is like, okay, all we're doing is automating what the thing is, and then the next thing you need to think about is this market good enough, right? Like what will it take to get adoption, not just at Cal, but also like get adoption in like all the schools, maybe in California, and then maybe like across the country. And I think those are the things which you need to think about, like while you decide whether this is something worth working on.
Yeah, so we've looked at the market. I mean, just in Berkeley, there's like 43 fraternities,
Yeah,
like 10 sororities. So only fraternities furrow. And Berkeley's a small school. Like it's not like it's academic. We're nowhere as big as USC or like
yeah,
Alabama with their fraternities. So
yeah,
our market size is way smaller. But we're trying to research our competitors, and we found no one, absolutely no one, who's trying to like show where the parties are or like automating the bid system, because that's been a system that's been implemented for like 100 years and there's been physical bids. And I know just from market research we've conducted, just like giving out surveys or interviewing people like one on one, it's just like they don't want to do that. They want to like just have something on the app and just see who's throwing, where's the party at, and get in using a digital means. And so we've been trying
yeah.
to automate that. And one of the issues was we're deciding whether to like stick with Xcode or stick with like making it a mobile app, or I mean a web app, or building with Firebase or stuff like that, Flutter maybe. So what do you think is
Oh,
your
okay,
opinion
got
on
it.
that?
Yeah, I would do whatever it takes to get to market first. Like I think if you think that the idea is worth pursuing, like I would focus on like I mean, what are you most skilled at? Are you most skilled at like building web apps or mobile like working on Xcode?
Yeah, so I built an MVP with Figma, It's just a UI
Okay.
UX app. My co-founder is more of like a back-end dude. He knows how to like
Yeah.
make structures, make it load quicker, whatever, whatnot. So we're just trying to figure out what to do from here.
Yeah. I would do whatever it takes to get to market first, because you actually want to get feedback from your customers and see whether it's working or not. And I think that's the most important thing. I think, like, of course, like, uh, you might have a bunch of opinions. Your, like, people you talk to might have a bunch of opinions, but like, till you get the app into the hands of your users and start getting feedback on that, you will probably not be able to confirm whether like this is something which is working or not. So I would focus on what it takes to minimize your time to get to market, and just focus on that.
So I know you told me your app took like 2.5 weeks to make. You think it'll be similar for this if you just crank it out like in the evenings? Did it take you like full days to do this, or like did you only spend a certain like amount of time when doing it? Did you like dedicate it? Do you have other commitments?
I need to understand your app more to talk about how long it'll take you. But like for us, it was like we were 100% focused on
Oh,
building that app out. So we were like, yeah, we need to get to market ASAP because we're excited about this, and we kind of narrowed down our MVP scope to make sure that that's something which can actually ship in 2.5 weeks. So we were, for us, like, shipping the product was really important to us, and like, so, and both of us were really focused on like building this out.
okay, yeah. So I could just go in a bit deeper. So the app is like there's issues in the physical bid systems. For example, one, people fake them. People like
Yeah,
try and copy them. Two, security. You don't know who you're letting in. Like if you just give out bids,
yeah,
people can trade those bids to other people. You don't know who you're letting in. So if you have
yeah.
a like a digital means, you can have their footprint. Um, Free. It's also just more efficient. It's faster. You don't have to go out with people actually walking over to sororities, giving out bids, whatever,
Yeah,
whatnot. And four, it's just tracking how many people are in a party. So
yeah,
you don't want a party to get too full because you don't want too many people to get rowdy, whatnot.
yeah,
So it just helps people, the executives, to keep track of the party. And the main scope of this app, the main just minimum feature is we want people to understand or like to let people in through digital bids. That's
yeah.
the most we want to do. That's just the main feature. So how do you think how long and what the process is for us to develop that?
Well, so it sounds like there's the two components to this app, right? One is the event management piece, and two is the actual just managing these digital bids. I mean, I
Yep.
would see there's a software called Luma, which actually helps you manage event pages. I would look at if you can actually integrate with Luma and just build out the
Luma.
bidding side of things. So the bidding side of things helps you decide like who can actually join the party, and then like the Luma is the event management piece, which actually like people can use to verify like whether you actually have a bid or not. And the bid can be tied to something like a phone number and stuff, which is hard to like fake, and all of that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. So you do a phone verification to while you submit your bid, and then that's the same phone numbers used to for verification when you get to the party, and that should be pretty simple. Like you can do some sort of send an SMS to get a verification code or all that sort of stuff. So those sort of things can be done pretty easily. So I would kind of think about it from those ways, like see if there's some existing tools out there which you can integrate with, and kind of go from there.
Oh, you cut out an existing tool. So what did you say
Yeah, I
after
would I
that?
would just see if I can use some existing tools and use that to build my app. Like there's no need to like reinvent everything from scratch.
Oh, for
I
sure.
would I would yeah I would definitely like see if there's something already out there which kind of like, let's say, meets 60 to 70% of my requirements, and then like, kind of see if I can like build a system around that.
Okay. And we've taken an approach of like going fraternity to fraternity because we thought, oh, we want fraternities to adopt this in order to make people have to use the app in order to get to the
Yeah.
party. And so we've gone fraternity to fraternity to get letters of intent to make sure they want actually to use this if this is an idea they're interested in. Do you think this is
Yeah.
the right approach or?
I think so. I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, though I don't know, you should consider like actually trust, like, deploying your software to to a couple of fraternities and get feedback before you kind of move on. Like, I think
Oh
what
yeah.
you, I
Okay.
think what you're doing makes sense, which is like go frat to frat, go individually, like putting in all the putting in the hustle to actually get some of your customers and things like that. But beyond that, I would definitely make sure some people are starting to use the app, right? So you deploy your app as soon as possible, and then make sure that like you and yeah, deploy your app as soon as possible and make sure some people are actually using it.
What do you think would be the three best tips you have for me when you develop this app? Like, three things to consider. Is it like just, yeah, just for me, experience building your own app?
uh, Three things to consider. Well, I think the first and most important thing is figure out a way to collect customer feedback. I think that's kind of critical. I think a lot of people build apps with just focusing on themselves and their own share like life experience, but not focusing as much on like what the customer needs. So I think figuring out a way to collect customer feedback and using that to iterate on your app is kind of always good. The next thing is, yeah, building things as fast as possible. I think for early stage startups, speed is definitely an advantage. So I would focus on like using a tech stack, which, because I think like a lot of the modern tech stacks are really good, and I think it's kind of like a matter of like in most cases it might come down to being a matter of preference than like a tech stack not being able to do something. Of course, you need to have like a long enough viewpoint that like tech stack can at least serve you well for the next 6 to 8 months. But like I wouldn't like okay think about hey can like think about whether this tech stack can scale over the next 10 years per se. I don't think you need to kind of think about that. If your app is actually good and valuable, then you can probably yeah, you can probably actually rewrite it at that point of time if there's a better technology out there. So
Uh,
that's the
yes.
next thing, and I think the third thing which I would do is, yeah, figure out how to get your app to the right people, because I think most what I've at least from my personal experience, like building the app is actually not the hard part. I think figuring out how to get people to use it is a much more tougher part. I would really focus on that. That is, how do you get the right people to be using your app?
Yeah, and just along those lines, in 2023, what do you think is the most like easy to use tech stack for like an app such as mine or such as yours, just to like get it going, get it fast, get it responsive?
Yeah, I mean, I think uh, the entire Next.js TypeScript ecosystem sounds to be pretty good, because like you can write both server side and client side app in the same language in TypeScript, and then like use that to deploy apps. There are a lot of like amazing tools like libraries out there which you can use, and yeah, I mean, I think there are lots of tutorials out there which like can actually get you to deploy the app in under a day. And the ecosystem works pretty well with like GitHub Actions and things like that to like help you manage most of the CI/CD, at least for an early stage startup. So yeah, I would focus on that, and then like yeah, if there are certain parts of an application which doesn't fit that need, I would look at something else. But I think if I had to start an app today, I would probably focus on that stack.
And do you have any future goals and aspirations as of now of just like what do you want to do next? Is it more of career focus? You want to more develop your startup? What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think like I'm still 100% focused on my startup. We changed our idea and pivoted to something else during a Y Combinator batch, but I think yeah, that's something which is taking up like almost 100% of my time right now. I think we're building like marketing automation software for Web3 companies, and it's an exciting field, and something like yeah, I see a lot of like engineering, data, as well as product challenges. So I'm excited about what we're building, and yeah, I think like I can that's what I'm looking to focus on for the next few years for sure.
And when you were making the app, did you ever have like I know my founder, my other co-founder, is just like he's a very eccentric guy. He has a lot of ideas, and it's up to me to get him to focus on this one thing because he feels like he needs to jump from idea to idea.
Yeah.
So, did you ever have that, or did you always just have focus on one solution,
No,
one
I mean, I
app?
think like a lot of early stage founders like tend to have a lot of ideas, right? Because like they they might be at the edge of working at certain technology and things like that, and there might be a lot of possibilities in terms of what you can build. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I do think you kind of need to narrow down your ideas to sorry, you need to narrow down your ideas to figure out like what is the key thing which you can work on to impact the world, right? So that's kind of what I would like. It's not a bad thing to have a lot of ideas, but you kind of also need to figure out how do you channel that energy to work on something which is actually useful for the world. So and I think like it needs to be a framework which both you and your co-founder need to be comfortable with, because I think like only then would you accept that framework. So that's how I would frame it. Like it's fine to have narrow down ideas, but once you get like 100% into an idea, you need to commit to it and work on it for some time.
Did you ever have like any struggles as a student in UC Berkeley? Any like super hard classes, balancing work and life balance?
uh yeah, I mean, I think there were a bunch of super. Yeah, I think there were. I would say there were quite a few classes which are fairly complex and hard. Uh, let's see. I mean, I think yes, it was. Well, I think it was a function of yeah, like balancing classes with also like with the job search, which also having like time to do something fun for yourself and all of that sort of stuff. I do think at that point of time, like I probably fun took a backseat, because like I think it was definitely crucial for me to make sure that like I am learning what I needed to learn and also get a job. But I think yeah, I mean I did try like get some opportunities, find some time during the weekends to go for a hike or like go visit other places in the Bay Area and all of that sort of stuff. So I think it comes down to like how you manage your schedule and all of those sort of things. Like I feel like setting goals at the beginning of the semester, and then like figuring out what it needs to accomplish those goals definitely helped me a lot.
Do you think you had like a favorite class in Berkeley or a favorite professor?
Um,
I know it's been a while.
It's been a while. I think I definitely like the machine learning class. I think there were two professors teaching them. Like, let me look up their names. Uh,
Because I know you were in grad school, right? It wasn't like undergrad
yeah,
courses.
let me see. I think it was Professor Alexei Efros and Professor Jitendra Malik who were teaching that course. So that was a fun course. And I think there was this course on optimization with Professor like Ian Adler was teaching. That was a pretty fun course as well. So from all the courses, I think those are the two courses which I felt like I learned a lot, and I think the professors were like interesting and in their own different ways, and try to make the subject matter interesting in like their own ways. So I think Professor Adler was like yeah, definitely try to like look at like some pretty interesting examples and stuff, and he had this interesting sense of humor as well in the class, which I thought was pretty funny. And then I think Professor Malik and Efros were actually like pretty strong, like computer vision experts. But I think they try to make like machine learning like pretty straightforward. Like they would come up with examples, and I think they did a pretty good job of visualizing like the topics and all of that sort of stuff. So that kind of helped me like and like I'm kind of a visual learner, so it's a lot more easier for me to learn from images than from text. So I think the way they taught the course was like made it a lot easier. And it was kind of the second time I was learning neural networks. So the first time I learned it was in undergrad, and I think I understood a lot more in my grad school than what I was doing in undergrad. So I have to thank them for that.
And as a founder, do you think you have any you as a person had any qualities that like helped you be as productive or as efficient as you are?
I mean, I still think that there's a lot I can do to get more efficient. I feel like sometimes like I'm not able to accomplish as much I want to be at the week every week. But yeah, I think like one of probably the things I which does work well for me is like I typically write down every single thing I need to be doing in a given week. and I could kind of like start like I put priorities to those and then start like cross mark them. So whenever I like check something off, like it gives me validation that I've made some progress. It also helps me stay on top of everything I need to be doing.
Oh, dope. And do you think you have any figures in the tech industry that inspire you? Do you think are you look up to at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a bunch of folks who are doing something interesting. I, yeah, I definitely think like, let's see, I mean, I think Sam Altman and Greg Brockman from OpenAI, I think they're pretty cool. Greg Brockman, I expect, especially like extremely strong technically, and then he's also like built, yeah, like had influence on two really big companies like both Stripe as well as OpenAI. Sam Altman had a lot of impact in YC as well as OpenAI, and I think he's working on a few other cool projects around like the nuclear fusion and stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. Uh, I think like yeah, the CEO of Microsoft's pretty interesting, like Satya Nadella. I think the way he transformed, like at least when I was in grad school, like Microsoft wasn't seen as the cool company back then, but I think now it's like there's a
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
pretty
they're
strong
fun.
positive like picture about Microsoft, and I think he definitely had some quite a bit to do with that. And I
Of
think
that.
it was around the time I was in grad school that he became the CEO of Microsoft, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, so I think those are the top three which come to mind, and I'm sure like there are a bunch of other people like who have done pretty cool stuff which I can learn a lot from.
And as such like a high functioning guy, just working on this app 24/7, do you have any ways to like wind down? Any hobbies you like to enjoy and stuff like that?
I personally, yeah, like reading books. I think books would be the primary way because I feel like that's kind of the primary way for me to like check out of my work and stuff like that, like thing. And sometimes I also love to like go for a workout and all of that sort of stuff. That helps me take my mind off. So I think those are the two primary ways which I've had in the last couple of last few years in terms of like taking my mind off work.
If you don't mind me asking, what are your like favorite books you've read so far? Just ones you like so much.
Favorite books, yeah, a few of them. I think Three Body Problem. I think is one of like it's kind of the sci-fi book. So big fan of that. And yeah, I was like while growing up, and I still read. I think I read one of the books last year again as well. Was like the Isaac Asimov series. Again, a big fan of that as well. Like I think I really enjoyed those books. So those are the probably on the fiction side and non-fiction. Let's see, what did I read recently? Uh, I think this one, the Blitzkrieg book by Reid Hoffman. That was something one of the things which read last year, and that was a lot of fun as well. So that was kind of nonfiction. It was a bit very interesting, like how some of the early companies, like how they decided to pick what are the problems to be worth solving. I definitely enjoyed that.
And what are you staying about now?
I'm sorry.
What are you staying in now?
Oh,
What
I'm
part of the
staying in San
U.S.?
Francisco. Yeah, so
Oh, San
still in the
Francisco.
area. Yeah, so still in the area. Yeah, and yeah, I think enjoy living down here.
Do you ever like travel back to Berkeley at all? I know we had some like
Oh
cool
yeah, for
campus
sure.
spots.
Like in fact, yeah, one of my closest friends lives in Berkeley now. So yeah, I definitely go down to visit him. Yeah, I mean, definitely like go come down to Berkeley at least like a couple of times a year, if not more.
Got any favorite spots in Berkeley for me to check out? Because I'm pretty new here, so I've been here for like for a month and a half.
Yeah, I mean, okay, that's a good question. Like, I feel like the spots which I found fun during grad school was different probably from the spots which find fun now. But I think like all the some of the restaurants on the north side of the campus, like I think near the Hearst Hall and stuff like that, those are quite some of the spots where I was spending a
Mm.
lot of time on. And I think like now, I mean, a lot of the hills, like Berkeley Hills and around those places, like there are quite a few nice trails which you can be using for hiking and all of that sort of stuff. So I kind of didn't explore that during grad school, but I think like I've gone for a few hikes with a few friends post that, and I found those to be quite a bit of fun as well. And there's some pretty nice views of the bay from there, so I find those pretty cool.
Did you ever like keep in contact with any people you met in grad school? Like, did you ever have to like bounce advice off of them or people you found super interesting?
Sorry, I didn't get that question.
So, did you have anyone in grad school that you found like super interesting? You still keep in contact with? You still contact for advice?
Yeah, I mean, are you talking about like classmates or professors?
Oh, both. Just whatever you feel like.
Yeah, I think yeah, definitely classmates have kept in touch with a number of them. I definitely like it's one of those things you wish you could always keep more in touch with, but not as much. And professors as well. Like I've been like in loose connect contact with a couple of them, but again, like not as much as I would have liked. Like I think as you
Yeah.
grow older, like our little life catches up with you, so your the sphere of the number of people whom you stay in touch with is like much lower than what you want it to be. But yeah, wherever I try, give it a shot. Like I think there are a couple of alumni events a year, so if there's an opportunity or if I'm around in the area, I try to make it to them.
And in your career right now, do you have any like advice on how to succeed in landing your first job or succeeding at the job you are in now?
Yeah, I mean, this is something which is, I think, like, of course, the from what I have seen, the bar to get the first job seems to be much higher nowadays than back in the day.
For
So I
sure.
definitely empathize with everyone like who's looking for the first internship or first job right now. But I think like there are a few things which work. One is like try to get an internship early because like the risk for an internship is much lower, and if you get an internship and they like you, a lot of the times the company will try to extend you an offer with them. And internship is low risk because like you get to spend 2.5 to 3 months with the person, and that's much lower pressure than let's say trying to hit a job interview out of the park. And the next thing which I typically recommend is try to understand the company and what they're actually looking for. Like, are they looking for programming skills? Are they looking for math skills? Are they looking for like great communication skills and kind of optimize for those? So I think like a lot of the times people prepare for in general for the job, but may not prepare as much about for the company. And I would definitely like focus a lot around like preparing for the company and how do you how can you fit into their culture. And the final thing is talk as much as possible to the alumni if there are any present in that company. I think that becomes super important because if there's someone who's an alumni from your program who has joined that specific company, they likely have a soft corner for you, and then they would try to do something. They might try to help you out by like talking through how the job is. Probably might help you out with like helping you prepare for the interviews and all of that sort of stuff. So I would definitely like if there's any alumni who is in that company, I would reach out to them. So those are some of the things which I think might help in getting a role.
And I'm gonna be so real with you. Like at this stage of my life, I'm not even sure really what I want to do. Like I find like building stuff super fun. I found software super fun. I also find math super fun. I like economics. Did you know from the onset what you wanted to do, or is it more of like a path? Like I'm just confused on what I want to do.
And I think that's totally fine. I don't think you need to have everything figured out especially during undergrad. I think like it's a myth that people have things figured out. I don't think people need to have every single piece of the thing. I think it's more about like yeah, keep doing the stuff which you like, be practical about it. But then if there's something which you do not like and don't want to do, then like yeah, switch things at that point of time. But I don't think you should be trying to push yourself to figure out everything you want to do at this point of time, because you just can't do that. So I feel like if there's something which you like, keep doing more of it. And then if there's at some point of time you stop liking doing that, then you kind of need to have an honest conversation with yourself as to why that happens. And once you have that answer, then you need to decide like, okay, is there something you can change, or do you need to do something completely different?